Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Duffy Duck here once again, and I'm back for some more of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more Let's Play of Kirby Superstar, aka Kirby's Fun Pack for the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom, for some more of the Great Cave Offensive mode. So last time we actually did explore for the majority of the old tower, in addition to the first halfway portion of the forms of the garden. And today for this episode is the fact that we're going to be moving on into the continuation on the final main world in the Great Cave Offensive, which is the garden itself, and we should able to get the last few treasures along the way. Means that if we actually look up on ourselves with the treasure tally chart at the moment, this means we have got ourselves 13 more treasures to go. So even then, that's naturally we've gone pretty close towards the end of the Great Cave Offensive, and then after that, game number 4 in the likes of Kirby Superstar will be fully accomplished, and only about, I would classify for 4 more games left, but I would try to say that much, it might be something more than that, but I digress. So let's go ahead and hop onto this cannon on the center, because that's where we need to get ourselves our next treasure chest. But in forms of how the fact that we need to use Jet on this, or simply put just use normal regular Kirby, because even I know you can actually use the the puff to able to actually just act like a projectile. So Xmas tree, so this actually worth 40,000 gold. Does that look familiar? Well, it appears to be a Christmas tree of any sort, because after all, we only got 9 months time before Christmas is already about to be starting with, so it's a little bit too early to be able to celebrate it with that. So yeah, anyway, a little bit of a weird treasure right there, but hey, at least we'll take it. So, you know the last treasure that we've got from ever since the last video, which was Katana? Not to be confused as the Katana, but in forms of Mortal Kombat character. But except the fact that it wasn't Mortal Kombat character after all, but in forms of Katana as a Japanese-based sword, if I would expect to calling it that. Apparently, that, whenever when I've mentioned this before, that I wasn't paying too much attention, but in forms of how much payment of G they've got. Apparently, Katana usually cost about 990,000 and, no, sorry, I kept on forgetting about this for this point, folks. 990,000 gold, so that is by far the most expensive item you can ever get on that particular treasures department. So here's the next one right here, which is a Rambus scale, which actually worth 12,800 gold. So anyways though, so yeah, we've gone so far so good, and I'm still missing out quite a few treasures though, mainly the other one, which even then I might as well be able to come back for that. Well, after when we actually just managed to explore this place. So even then, with that being said, we still got all the way to go there for this point, because today was actually forms of the 19th of March, 2018, so that means we got ourselves 4 more days left until Detective Pikachu will be on its way onto the Nintendo 3DS, in the international release this time. Now, originally I was trying to get Detective Pikachu, but because of thanks to Nintendo Direct, 8th of March, during the likes of 2018, they've announced, Mario Luigi's Bowser's Inside Story, plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey, in addition to WarioWare Gold on the 3DS, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker on the 3DS, along with the Switch version, and also Luigi's Mansion for the 3DS, not for the Switch, because the same gripe I had with the forms of Mario Party the Top 100, expecting that might be releasing on the Switch, but nope. It's just the 3DS port, which even I know, I've heard that many people seem to complain about, for that announcement, which I honestly agree of, because I would love to see Luigi's Mansion truly in HD for the very first time ever since, I would classify for, ever since New Super Luigi U for the Wii U, because that was a Luigi game after all, but in forms of entirely in HD quality. But a lot of the time it's just how the fact that what makes it incredibly stingy by the looks of all the game's announcements like that. Sometimes they always trying to be like a little bit more, well, stingy when it comes to promises, but in forms of Luigi's Mansion 3, because that would be a very, very great choice, but in forms of, since Luigi's 35th anniversary of Luigi himself, And then, too bad it wasn't. So anyway, here's the next chest right over there, which contains Kong's barrel, but in forms of 1,500 gold, aka 1,500 gold. Does that look familiar? Because that is a similar reference, but in forms of Donkey Kong. At least if you ever played through, you know, Kirby Superstar Ultra version, that it does usually contains DK represents Donkey Kong. Which to me looks very, very cool. But even at that, that's as far as it will go. So anyways, I think the only problem I have with the actual garden itself on the forms of this version compared to the DS version, I think that's one reason I really don't like this level in the Super Nintendo version is that, as you can see, we're actually on this cloud section, and it's just a really confusing maze kind of area, you know, like, I mean, you're gonna have to pay attention to the actual foreground, but even then, though, you're gonna have to pay attention to those kinds of stuff, because if you manage to, you know, just trying to cope with it, I suppose, but still, it's incredibly confusing sometimes. Especially right now, that I just keep on wandering around like a fool like I am. But even then, though, it's kind of hard to tell which one is the correct pathway or not. Although, granted, though, this might be the only time we're actually going to be coming across into those situations like this. But a lot of times, you might actually run into, like, you know, solid walls and everything. Okay, I had to do a jump cut right there, because I just simply realized is that I need to quickly go for that gap over there, and that way we should be able to proceed. So even then, again, I do apologize if my gameplay aspect becomes incredibly rusty in these places, but even then, that's as far as I can tell. But anyway, back as what I was saying about how the fact that some people usually have a major complaint with how the fact that the Luigi's Mansion remake is going to be on the 3DS, because some people think that the 3DS every now and then, the visual standpoint is now downgraded, which I did have a exact same issue I had with the forms of Mario Party the Top 100 recently, that me and Pinkie Pie did already tackle for that game. And I kind of wish if the Mario Party the Top 100, in addition to Luigi's Mansion Remake, will be entirely in HD on the Nintendo Switch, which I don't have an issue in the forms of Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, because it's basically just a DS game, but with a or the DS game remake, but in forms of the upgraded visuals, which I don't mind. But in addition to that, though, that it makes it a little bit more sensical to make Mario & Luigi games to be on the handhelds, because it's already popular enough ever since doing the forms of Mario & Luigi Superstar Soccer for the Game Boy Advance. In addition to that, though, for Mario & Luigi Partners in Time, some people usually complain about the fact that, you know, the reason why that Mario & Luigi Partners in Time remake does not make it appear on the 3DS. I think this is probably due to, time paradox issues, or maybe something to do with, like, having a hard time making a reproduction in visual standpoints for both Baby Mario and Baby Luigi, I think. Or possibly maybe Baby Bowser during the past, or maybe something related to something else, but even then, I don't know why they skipped the second installments when it comes to remaking stuff on the 3DS. So anyways though, for this treasure right there, as you can tell, we're going to be using a bike wheelie at the moment, and we got ourselves a tire, which actually worth 1,100 gold. Kind of more adultive though anyway, so anyway, yeah, and also I don't have as much issues I have with, I was classified for Captain Toad Treasure Tracker because I do enjoy Captain Toad Treasure Tracker on Nintendo Wii U, because it's been a really unique game to me. Even though that the selling points of the Wii U is now currently gone down a little bit at the moment, well, usually right about now, because, you know, the Wii U's selling points is sold really poorly compared to how it does in Nintendo Switch, but I digress. But even now, can't wait to play, you know, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker for about not one again, but twice again, because I just really adored this game so much. But even then, I would classify for redoing that game Let's Play, to be honest, but in forms of the Switch version. Spoiler alert, if those of you might have missed it, because there's no point for me to actually delete the whole entire thing on the Wii U version. But hey, at least it works though for me. So anyways, there's nothing we can do in this area besides the random items down there, which I don't know how you're able to break them, honestly. But even I know that we can able to cope with it though, I suppose. But anyway, I guess there's not much else to say besides, you know, now the reason why I just can't be getting Detective Pikachu for now. Although I really appreciate it at this point, but unfortunately, because I got distracted by the forms of my favorite franchise, especially with the 3DS, is never going to be saw the light of ending until 2019 or something like that. Well, it all depends though, really. But even then, though, we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. So, okay, so I think there's going to be a next treasure up here, but we're going to need something a little bit more different for a change. Well, obviously we can't... Well, what's unique about this particular buddy system is the fact that... or the helper system, rather. If you couldn't tell, this is before when New Super Mario Bros. Wii exist, and even New Super Mario Bros. U did also exist. I found the fact that you can actually jump on people's heads. Well, in this game, it does have that tradition as well, because even then, in order to actually perform it, we need to press the up directional pad at the right time on the Super Nintendo controller, and if you manage to perform that successfully, although first things first, let's take out my plasma copy ability, because we can't do anything about it from injuring the likes of, well, basically for the sake of everything. So, we'll just go ahead and just, yeah, we can't do that, because obviously, we need to actually, discounted my copy ability at the moment and bounce on one of your companions and inhale it for a few seconds, and then there you go. We get ourselves the shiny bamboo. This actually worth 600,000 gold, which is quite a lot because, you know, that's what it represents, shiny bamboo, as far as you might see that right there. Okay, so we've almost there to actually accomplish the whole entirety of the treasure chests department, by the forms of the checklist, I should say. I guess I should probably mention right from the start, though, that I, did not notice something, is that, well, for this particular section alone can get pretty confusing on the Super Nintendo version, because you can't really tell where you'd be going. Because sometimes they might actually think that, there might be something related to the wall. Ah, damn it. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll present to you the worst Kirby ability, among with Bold Kirby ever since, you know, Kirby's Adventure. This is sleep. Because one thing I haven't mentioned about this to you guys about something is that, well, I haven't properly mentioned about the fact that with the sleep ability enjoyed about a few seconds ago in the last video, what it does is basically just lets Kirby sleep automatically, so you can't able to wake him up just in time before he managed to finish sleeping. So that, yeah, it's a bit of a waste. Anyway, so we get ourselves a Spirit Charm, and this actually worth 78,500 gold. So we're pretty much almost nearly towards the end of this part right there, especially with the actual garden itself. And naturally speaking, we've got ourselves only 53 treasures, at the moment. So if we can know, we got ourselves 7 treasures left, so we're almost there towards the end. Thankfully though, the DS version of the forms of Kirby Superstar Ultra did manage to fix that issue with the forms of this Cloud Maze, you know, labyrinth section, to make these stars a little bit more interesting, or in this case just the actual stars, to make you go all the way onto the exact point of that progression. So the reason why I'm coming back here is because I just soonly realized I've actually missed out on that and yet another treasure that's on the exact same area. Although first things first, let's go ahead and obtain my jet ability. Go down here, because if you see this little brighter color of that particular tone, you get yourselves a charm, which actually worth 8,000 gold. And naturally, we got ourselves 6 more treasures left. I believe the next couple of treasures we're going to be at the door on the right, because we're gonna have to save the door in the center until we get to the very end. Well, at least until then, we'll just concentrate on the door on the right, because even I know there's gonna be some more treasures along the way. Before we do this, actually, let's go ahead and just regenerate my health real quickly, and save my progression at the same time, and we can progressively continue. Sorry for a little bit of a, my throat has gone a little bit more dried up yet again. Well, I do apologize for that, folks. So anyways, the next treasure is going to be on the cannon section. It's pretty simple. Pegasus Wing. And that's actually worth 42,800 gold. Alright, how far are we in? 5 more treasures left. Alrighty then. So let's go ahead and just, you know, pop up to these cannons one form or another. Sometimes I found the timing on these cannons can get a little bit off in this version, because compared to how it does in the future games, I always found the timing on the cannons department super easy and accurate. But in this version of Kirby Superstars, not so much for me. But even that, let's go ahead and proceed. So, I believe there's going to be a mini-boss coming up right now. So, let's just go ahead and just not get hit by the wheelie, enemy right there. But, hey, at least we got ourselves the next treasure chest along the way. So, even then, that we can able to actually deal with Buzzler of any sorts. So, even then, we can able to deal with him that way. And, Shazam! Okay, that works. That works fun enough. And then if you defeat him, then you get yourselves the Raccoon Doll. This actually worth 8,150 gold. Hey, at least I'll take it. Pretty decent amount of price. So we've got ourselves 4 more treasures left, and I believe the other 2 is going to be on the next room. So even though that we haven't gone that far left. Even though unfortunately I'm going to get hit quite a few times because of due to how the fact that I wasn't paying too much attention, or maybe it's because the enemy placement sometimes can get a little bit more reckless of anything like that. But we'll see what happens there. Okay, crush ability, that could be for later on, because I just need to be very, very cautious with all these enemies. Can do so much damage right there, especially with bigger enemies, but even that, that's as far as I can think of. Including the likes of the Goldos here and there as well, because much like how it does it in Kirby's Dream Land Hard mode, that these guys can wreck your health out. Okay, let's just go ahead and... You freaking cutter! Alright, back again, sorry about that folks, and this time I've actually got myself my different companion with me, but in forms of the Wheel Rider again, and except the fact that we can actually ram into those guys so easily. And yeah, I think there are 2 chests in here. I think the first one in this particular room is the fact that, yeah, I can see that from the edge, and unfortunately due to how the Gordo is still around, means that we cannot kill the Gordo so easily like this. I'm gonna have to toss the wheel out of the way, and then able to actually get that treasure open and over with. But I'm not exactly sure if this will work though. I think it might actually kill me. Sure whistle. This actually worth 82,000 gold, so that's worth mentioning. And yep, I was too late for that, so I'll meet you guys back. Alright folks, turns out if you're probably wondering why my lives count is back to 3 instead of the usual 0, if you're probably wondering, it's because I've got myself my second game over in this run. This is probably because, Jesus Christ, the cutter itself is extremely dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, because sometimes he actually stands around like nothing else, while other times he just jumps ahead, and then oftentimes they're trying to catch up to you so easily, like this enemy for instance. I was trying to able to avoid him just fine, but as long as you're able to jump higher way up before I'm able to go over him, and then all of a sudden he kills me in the process and I get the game over. So because of that though, it's, you know, stingy with checkpoints I suppose. One of those things about this particular next treasure in this room though is the fact that much like how it does it in your forms of the crystal area, we need to use the crash ability before you're able to activate the switch. So Oe Hoken, which I do apologize for that name by the way, this worth 512,000 gold. So, jeez, that's quite a lot. So, naturally, we already got we got to find the last 2 treasures in this particular Great Cave Offensive, and it's going to be on, well, the last 2 treasures are going to be most accurately in the final section in this particular package game. Well, you to be more specifically, the Great Cave Offensive itself, so to be more specific than that. So anyways though, so let's go ahead and just exit out for this area because I'm pretty much done with that area. But again, that's only because of how the fact that I wasn't paying too much attention with those enemy patterns sometimes. But naturally though, that's all I can really think of at this point, so... Anyways, so let's go ahead and now focus on... Oh, before I do this kind of stuff, let's go ahead and actually, let's go ahead and just obtain Cutter from now on, because we can able to actually use Cutter for the next treasure. In this case, treasure number 59. Which, by the way, you know this final room in this particular garden right there? Well, this is the part right there. Go down here, ignore the ones on the right, just cut the ones on the left, because if you accidentally cut it from the right, you won't able to proceed. And especially noticeable with the other wire from the other section, because you will not get that treasure in the process. But this is the Platinum Ring, and this actually worth 40,000 gold. Quite a lot of gold there, huh? Anyway though, so naturally we've got ourselves one more treasure left before we're able to get ourselves all 60 of these treasures in the process. So even then, hopefully we can able to actually get this mode done before we're able to move on to the next game in the lineup in Kirby Superstar, which is Revenge of Meta Knight. So even then, I'm really looking forward to actually turns out how yeah. Okay, so this is the last room before you're able to proceed to the actual boss room of any sort. In this case, the final boss in the Great Cave Offensive, mind you. But all we have to do is basically we need to avoid a lot of springs. But even then, if you accidentally touch one, then it automatically bounces you higher up, all the way back to where you came from. But I'm not talking about this here, because this is where we're able to get ourselves the 60th and the final treasure chest in the majority of the Great Cave Offensive. So, let's open this up and see what is in here. Well, what do you know? It's the Triforce. And this actually worth 800,000 gold. So this is a reference to The Legend of Zelda. Means represents the Triforce of Power, the Triforce of Courage, the Triforce of Wisdom. Yeah, that's all I can describe about the Triforce. So anyways though, since we've got ourselves, I would classify, I might as well discuss more on that later, because even then though we got ourselves the final boss in the forms of the Great Cave Offensive, or in this case the next boss in Kirby Superstar, meet Wham Rock. Now this guy is a pretty interesting boss fight because as you can see, he's using his hands for his different sorts of attacks. By the forms of his fist attack, and especially noticeable with this little particular movement of his hands that look kind of familiar. That's only because this is when Super Smash Bros. Exist, in the forms of Nintendo 64 installments first off, that they did quite a few familiar moves that he's done. Ever since, well, Master Hand wasn't even exist, and even Crazy Hand don't exist at all. But even then, that's as far as I can really tell for that point, so... Oh jeez, I'm gonna get wrecked in a minute, because even then, sometimes it's really hard to tell with his pattern going on here. And sometimes, I think that, I accidentally picked up a yo-yo copy ability by complete accident, so I really get a feeling it doesn't do as much damage, I don't think. But even then, I think the only best copy ability I can think of, it will probably be... I would classify for bomb, but even then I was a bit too late for now, so... Oh god, that was close. Oh, how did the hand come out of nowhere? That was clearly visible. Oh jeez, it's kind of like how it does it in a chameleon fight, by the forms of how the fact that it was clearly invisible at first, but then I just got so easily wrecked due to how the fact that his hand is clearly invisible, so... Anyways, let's go ahead and just activate Chili yet again. And this time I've got myself my bomb copy ability now, so... But hey, at least the checkpoint does actually brings you to the rematch of the boss itself, so even I know. Hopefully it won't have as many trouble as it does it from last time though, so anyway. See, I think bomb will actually do just as that though, I think, because even then though, that'll deal so much more damage, I think. Although, kind of thing about it though, I'm still so used to with other Kirby games at this point, especially with Kirby's Adventure and Kirby's Dream Land 2 and Kirby's Dream Land 1, since these games don't have block ability. But in this game actually introduces the blocking ability until, you know, Kirby's Dream Land 3 and Kirby 64, I get the feeling they won't feature in the block featuring, I don't think. But even then, we'll see what happens here. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, come on. Hopefully it should be down in any moment. His eyes do look a bit weird in this game compared to how he does it in the DS version, because in the DS version it looks almost like realistic of any sort. But even then, I'm not going to get into more details onto that once we're able to get into Kirby Superstar Ultra until anytime soon. But anyways though, so let's go ahead and just, you know, try to avoid his hand attacks, and hopefully we can able to deal with the last few hit points from here. Keep on blocking. How in the world? Okay, come on. He's way too fast. Yeah, I think this is where the boss starts to get really tricky sometimes, is that his movement on his hands can get ridiculously fast. But if you manage to beat the likes out of his hands quite a few times, then that pretty much does it for the forms of the final boss in the forms of the Great Cave Offensive, which is Wham Rock. And after that, then we actually have to ride on the minecart for the final time, just because of how the fact that since we've got ourselves all 60 of these treasures and the amount of gold that we've got, I believe it's actually 9,999,990 gold at the maximum moment. So, yeah, because of that though, we have to go ahead and escape the Great Cave Offensive now. Because of that though, we're pretty much done with the entirety of the mode. So even then though, that hopefully we can actually go through these little elevators, or lifts, whatever you call it that. And then this will actually lead you all the way back to this entrance, because this entrance is kind of familiar. And because of that though, if you go all the way to the left, there's a warp star. Means if you actually touch the warp star, then the entirety of the Great Cave Offensive is completed. Assuming if you're actually able to grind for some more of those treasures, if it's entirely up to you. But I digress, so that was it for the Great Cave Offensive. It was a pretty enjoyable mode, as far as the actual game itself actually. But even then though, that my biggest gripe I have with this mode, at least for me though, is the fact that sometimes damage outputs on enemies is way too much. But aside from that though, it's a pretty interesting gameplay aspect by the forms of the Great Cave Offensive, because it reminds me of, you know, Super Metroid, or in this case the Metroidvania type, because you have to hunt for those treasures in any sorts, and different sections you have to go through. And especially noticeable with this escape section right there. And even that mode does remind me of Super Smash Bros. Brawl Subspace Emissary mode, which even then though, that also reminds me of that. And also during the likes of Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal on the 3DS, and especially with Sonic Boom Fire and Ice. And I think that's what I can say about this here. So yeah, it's a pretty enjoyable mode. But even then though, that after this particular escaping sequence, as you can see here, it tells you how much gold you've got at the moment, in addition to how many treasures that you've got for the majority of the Great Cave Offensive. But as I mentioned earlier, there are 60 treasures in total, and this will actually lead us to, you know, 9,999,990 gold, which is a lot of cash. And yeah, I just really enjoyed how the fact that this mode did actually introduce some Nintendo-based references, which I think is absolutely enjoyable, and is also quite cute as well. And aside from that, it's a pretty enjoyable mode. I kind of wish there's more to it from the likes of the future Kirby games, but even then, it also does that in the forms of Kirby Superstar Ultra, which I'm super looking forward to it whenever I get to it. So even then, that could be something worth mentioning for this throughout. So, and yeah, since we've got ourselves all 60 of these treasures, as I mentioned earlier, if you didn't get all the treasures in the game, or in this case in the Great Cave Offensive, all it gets is just basically just says congratulations and no imagery on there. But if you do manage to collect all 60 of these treasures, as I mentioned earlier quite a few times, in addition to how much gold you've got, you get yourselves not only the congratulations message, but also, after this credit sequence is done, you get yourselves this special image by the forms of Kirby's now pride and joy with a whole abundance of gold he has. Probably he might sell it for some money or some cash to able to make Sakurai a new Kirby game, if anything else for this recitable, or if possible. Or maybe some more cash or money to make even more stuff from Super Smash Bros. For the Switch. So anyways though, let's go ahead and end things off here, so join me next time when Let's Play Kirby Superstar, aka Kirby's Fun Pack. Is that we're moving on into the 5th game in the lineup, Revenge of Meta Knights. This is gonna be exciting, wasn't it? So see you guys next time. Later fellas.